Welcome to our basic guide on navigation. As you can see here, we have a large topographic map of the Alpine National Park. This can be quite difficult to navigate as beginners, so we're going to start with our basic drawing here. On this basic map, you can see three different houses. These three different houses are labelled A, B and C. We're going to start by trying to find the grid references for each. As you can see along the left hand side of this map, we have our northing lines. These northing lines have a grid reference number located on the side of the map. Our eastlings then have a grid reference number located on the bottom of the map. As you can see on our larger scale map, we also have grid references on each side. So top, side, bottom and far side. These grid references don't change on either side. They will show the same number. For this basic grid referencing task, we're going to start with house number A, or letter A. As we know with grid referencing, we need to crawl before we can walk. Crawling, we know, is along the ground. So that would be going from left to right. When we walk, we then move up the map, going from bottom to top. To find the grid reference for A, we'd need to first crawl across before going up. As you can tell, it is tough because this house does not line up with either 62 or 63, neither does it line up with 33 or 34. Due to this, we need to break up each grid into a smaller lot of squares. This will total 100 squares, but as we go across, we broke each grid into 10. That will allow us to get an accurate measurement of where this house is. If you look very close, I've drawn small little markings here, signifying this being broken up into 10 smaller sections. This isn't available on our larger maps, so we have to just imagine or guess how far across each grid line it is. For house A, if we're to crawl before we walk, we first go to 33. That would be our first number on this map. We then know that house A is approximately 1/10 of this grid across again. So our first two numbers we would write down for this grid reference here would be 33, then it is 1/10 across, so 33, 1. They're our first numbers of our 6 number grid reference. We've now crawled, we now need to walk. So coming up from the bottom, the first number we hit, 62. How far up A is? 1, 2, 3. If that's about halfway, we'd guess that at being 62. That's 5. It's about at 4. So 62, 4. Okay, showing that again. We go crawl to 33 is approximately 1/10 across, so it would be 33, 1. We then walk from the bottom to the top, so up to 62. It's just short of halfway up that grid, so around 62, 4 is where we'd be at. Transferring this skill to our large Alpine National Park topographic map, we can see it becomes slightly more complex as we add in many more features. We're going to show how to find the CRB camp here via grid referencing. Remembering again, we crawl before we walk, so we must go across. Saying down here, it's 40 to 44, it's past 44, approximately just short of halfway, so we put that at 44, 4. The next thing we need to do is walk. So walking up our line, CRB camp spot isn't where the name is, but is where the dot is. This dot is located at 05, just past halfway, so 056. That means our grid reference would be 44, 4, 056 to find CRB camp.
The next skill of navigation is learning how to go from point A to point B. For this, you need to know how to take a bearing. But before we can take a bearing, we need to learn a little bit about the compass. So here we have the compass. As you can see, there's many different parts. Here we have the direction arrow. So this generally points the direction in which we want to travel. Here we have the compass housing. Inside the compass housing, there is the bearings. So these are the numbers situated around inside the housing. Also in the housing, we have the magnetic needle. This is the needle that points to north. Also within the housing, we have the orientating lines, used to help navigate. Also, the last feature is the base plate, so commonly found used for ruling and working out measurements. Like we did with grid referencing, we're going to practice using this scaled down map to make it a little bit easier. So firstly, we want to place our compass down, pointing in the direction we want to travel. So in this case, we want to go from house A to house B. So we line up the compass. The next step is to orientate, using the orientating lines, to face north, to line up with the north-eastings, or the north-south grid lines. We just want to be careful here that we make sure that the north in the house, the compass bearing, is actually facing north on the map, like we see over here. A common mistake is to have south facing north, which can lead to a very inaccurate bearing. So we rotate the north in the housing parallel to the eastings. Here we can take the compass off the map, and in line with the directional arrow you can see a number. Here we have our bearing. It approximately looks like 54 degrees. So this is the direction we wish to travel, 54 degrees. When using a compass on a map, the magnetic needle isn't of importance. But as soon as you want to use your bearing in a practical sense, and taking the compass off the map, you want to ensure that the magnetic needle faces north in the compass housing. So to do this, you want to have the compass at around hip height and rotate your body until red is in the shed. So here, red is in the shed. Using the directional arrow, this is the direction we want to travel.
Next, we are going to transfer this skill to our larger topographic map. For this example, we're going to travel up Mount Cope track to Mount Cope. We then need to have our directional arrow pointing the way we want to go. So lining the base of the compass up, from the base of the track up to Mount Cope, we have it lined up. Our easterling lines run across, we need to line that up with our north-south. North is here on our compass housing, so lining that up with the lines we can see through our compass, we now have that parallel, which means we have our grid bearing in line with the directional arrow. The difference here is we need to deal with a concept called magnetic declination. Magnetic declination occurs due to us having a difference between our grid north lines and what is our magnetic north. This difference is shown on all maps, usually in the top right hand corner. Let's have a look at that. Top right hand corner of most topographic maps are going to show us the difference between our grid north and our magnetic north. Our grid north is shown here, magnetic north shown over here. Grid north, obviously what we're seeing on the grid on our map. As you can tell, the grid to magnetic angle is shown as being 12.1 degrees different. That means between our grid north, what we've taken our measurement, and our magnetic north, what we're going to find on the ground, is going to be 12.1 degrees different. As we've taken this reference off the map, it is also a number we need to take off our compass. But we also need to calculate how many years old this map is, as this map, magnetic north, moves every year. Our map here tells us it moves 0.1 of a degree every year. As it moves 0.1 of a degree every year, and our compass is made in 2011, our map is made in 2011, we need to times that by 2, as it's now 2013, so 2 years difference. To do this, we start. The difference between our grid and magnetic angle for this map is 12.1 degrees. This changes by 0.1 degree every year. As it's 2 years, we need to do that 2 times. So we add +1 +1. This will then give us 12.3 degrees. This map would be out by. That's how much we need to take off our compass bearing. As our compass bearing reads 240 degrees, taking 12.3 degrees off this compass bearing, we then are left with approximately 227 degrees. This is the bearing we need to take to get from the bottom of the path up to Coal Hut, as we've measured before. With these 3 basic skills of grid referencing, taking a bearing, and reading magnetic declination, we should be on our way to navigating much more effectively.